Like, it's July.
I'm trying to think cool. Those poor people in Phoenix, 117 degrees, and they're talking about temperatures. And I felt for my car tires.
If you want people to feel cool, John, we're both from the Midwest. You're from Illinois, I'm from Michigan. If you want people to feel like they're in a colder environment, you got to do a more northern Canadian type accent, okay?
Okay. Oh. So, pet peeves. We all have them. We are famous on No Driving Gloves for bitching. But I just thought we'd do a quick show and we would throw in a list of our pet peeves, the little things that are annoying us that I want to keep it automotive related. But if you've got a big one that you want to throw out there, like the guys that
I just want to
operate
say,
the
I just want to
handicap
say that
carts at Walmart.
every cat I've had as a pet, I've named Peeve.
Yeah, he's your pet peeve.
Exactly.
I'm sure they're appreciative of that.
Yeah.
So I mentioned this topic to you, Derek, and then for the next 4 hours, my phone didn't stop chirping with text alerts from you. So I'm going to let you go first. And let's jump right into this pet peeve stuff. And again, listeners, comment, step up, let us know what your peeves are, and we will work with it.
Oh, there are so many, John. Like you said, I spent like a couple hours texting you every 10 minutes with a list of pet peeves. But one I have mentioned on the show before, not necessarily on a show about pet peeves, but just something that really bothers me as an automotive historian and researcher is when I read a book, and these are books that are supposed to be well researched and written by notable authors or whatnot. And within the first 5 pages, there's historic inaccuracies, misinformation. But that is a pet peeve. But I want to take that a step further tonight, because one of the things that is really bothering me, and of course, being in the museum world, being in this history world, also conservation and restoration world, is the abuse and misuse of AI technology in putting misinformation out. Now, granted, it's doing a bunch of damage in other worlds, right? Political, whatever, wherever you want to take that. But for this show and for my pet peeves, it is all of these terrible AI generated images of historic vehicles, and I'm putting air quotes around that for those that aren't watching the YouTube. I mean, and the one I shared with John on text messages was it wasn't an AI generated picture. It was an AI generated post connected to a picture. The picture was Henry Ford on a 1903 Ford Model A. The post was about the first 5 Packard Model A's, or the first Packards that were built. And they're connecting this picture to claiming it's a Packard with one of the Packard brothers sitting on it, and it's Henry Ford in a Model A. And it's just this type of misinformation, and in the case of books, how we used to get our information, when there's misinformation and either poorly researched or allowed to be created by artificial intelligence, it's going to wind up completely destroying the historic record of automotive history, because people are just going to start thinking that this stuff's correct. And there's only going to be a handful of us out there fighting it, and it's going to become a real problem. It's just like the other post said. I mean, Abraham Lincoln warned us.
That is, I listen to some tech podcasts too, because I live my world with cars and tech and things like that. And that's one of the big things is the misinformation and the deep fakes. And I don't even know if this is AI generated, what you sent me. I wish I had thought it through and had this available for the YouTube viewers. But you were referring to Henry Ford in a Model A, not a Model A 1928. This is Model A, or
1903.
This is like first car. And of course, it's being referred to as an 1889 Packard or something in the thing. But it actually just looks like they took a picture and put the wrong caption with it. And we can do that. We can talk about, well, we could make up whatever information we want. We have a podcast. We don't need to talk about facts or anything. It's like this news article I've got here. It was redone on the Daily. Employee fills boss's Jeep tires to 97 PSI. Reports it doesn't go up to 100%. He was filling up the Jeep tires at a air pump, and it could only get him to 97 PSI because he thought the gauge on the dashboard was 100% inflated, not the PSI. And well, we could sit here and just spread that misinformation. And that's one of my pet peeves are those memes that go around, especially in the automotive world. You could put this up, inflate your tires to 100%, or, you need to remove whatever, or cut the valve stems off because there's a GPS tracker in there, or whatever. You switch this fluid to this fluid, or some people are going to believe this. Yeah. And while we get a laugh at it, and the knowledgeable people can laugh at it, there are people, unfortunately, that can't afford that mistake or have that problem because I saw it on the internet. I believed it, so I did it. And I was talking about, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I was talking this morning because my insulin pump's been giving me some issues, and I've been fighting with the manufacturer because I had to change a continuous blood glucose monitor sensor, which for my insurance, fortunately, is free. But if I was paying out of pocket, that's a $50 item. And I had to refill, a new cartridge because of the way this stupid pump was. And well, that cartridge is $15. And I finally determined that every quarter I'm going through an extra bottle of insulin that costs $1,000. And I know that's a little off topic, but I can afford that because I have good insurance. Not the best insurance for Alabama, but my insurance covers all of that. But if I was paying out of pocket and now I've got to buy a 9th bottle of insulin at $1,000, out of pocket, there's people that are going to go without insulin because of that. There's already people that go without their basic insulin. And it's the same thing as you tell somebody sees this meme on Facebook that says, hey, you need to add this to your radiator, or you add this additive to your oil, and it blows their car up. Now they were poor. Now they're poorer. It's misinformation on the internet pisses me off, especially when it relates to cars, because I'm so quick on picking it up. And we probably should have had that as a segment maybe during the show. And we each find some stupid misinformation that comes out on the internet on a car every week, and we can point out these stupid memes. But, sorry to go on a tirade there, but I totally agree with you that, AI provides, I can't remember the term AI uses, because AI doesn't make a mistake. And it doesn't malfunction. It's some fancy, cool word that doesn't sound like a mistake, but it's providing you wrong information. And going back to where you started, we were doing at the beginning of this year, we were doing This Day in Automotive History. And I was doing it kind of to promote this book, just out of the goodness of my heart, not being sponsored or anything. This Day in Automotive History. It was amazing to me in the 3 months that we did it, how many things were wrong in that book and what date it said it happened. And not only did it get the day wrong sometime, it got the year wrong, or it got the whole scenario wrong. And this book's touted, and it has a website about it. And it really became to do that 5-minute show. And that was the goal, is to keep those shows under 5 minutes. It took 3 to 5 hours a day to research, write, figure out everything. And I was still using some AI with it to help write the initial script. And you can almost tell AI that it always uses one particular word, and it just got to me. But yeah, so there, I'll go right with you, Derek. I totally believe your AI pet peeve things. And
you better, John.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll quickly gloss over the quick, easy ones for car people: left lane bandits, people who don't use their turn signals. I even call it center lane bandits, the people that like to drive, 12 or 15 miles an hour or something. Am I still here, Derek?
Yeah. Am I still here? You're there. I'm here.
Yeah.
Now you're starting to freeze up.
Camera or anything.
You're frozen up. You glitched a little there on the voice. Talk again.
Okay, I'm talking again. I don't know. I'm having a little technical issue. I might have to quickly back
Audio's
out
good.
And let you carry
Audio's
it.
good. Video's not. Video's frozen up.
Yeah, I'm going to have to reboot. You go with your next one. I'll be right back.
Oh, my next pet peeve. All right. Pet peeve, car peeve, whatever you want to call it. So the next one on my list, it's a bit twofold, I would say. And it's one side is the stereotyping of car guy and the terminology of car guy. Obviously, it's typically in the car world, the automotive hobby. I hope everyone recognizes the term car guy as all inclusive. But car gals, car guys, car people, and the general public tends to lump car guys into a certain category, and I don't necessarily like that. It's a pet peeve of mine because although we all have a passion and interest for cars, I think the stereotypical image that comes to people's mind when they say car guy is much different than a large group of the people who are interested in cars. So, John, I was saying a pet peeve of mine is the stereotyping behind the name car guy or the term car guy. And I mentioned that, I hope everyone feels that that is an all-inclusive term: car guy, car gal, car people, where it's all the same. It is a group of
Are you going to
people that
get?
are into
Are you
cars.
trying to create a really long acronym for us?
No, why?
Or we're a car GG HH, a car
Oh, so
guy, gal, him,
you're a
her,
CG,
his.
CG,
Yeah,
CG, C, she, C, we, yeah, CG, C, she, C, we plus people.
yeah.
There, we came up with it. But no, I'm saying that I don't like that. It's a pet peeve when people say, "Oh, you're a car guy." Not that I necessarily take any offense to it. It's just I think that when people use that term, there's a stereotypical mindset behind it, and you know, I don't think we should all be lumped into that mindset, that stereotypical mindset. Although we are all car people, we have very diversified interests and, you know, portions of the car hobby that we are in. And it just kind of bugs me. I think it's a pet peeve. I don't know. I've never really liked, and I think I've talked about it on the show before too. I've never really liked that terminology of like car guys. It doesn't work for me.
You've brought it up before, and I really try to avoid using the term because, unfortunately, there's a little bit of sexism in it. But you even go into a group of, hey guys, what's up? Even if there's three women in that group, or three girls or ladies, or hamsters, which is always guys. And when I think car guys, you either think James Dean, or you think the wife beater, or pack of smokes rolled up in your arm, sleeve, t-shirt, greasy, dirty, maybe got a little bit
Yeah.
of a gut, and
Joe Dirte.
Or you think, and you mentioned it in your texts, you think the Corvette guys, and they always have New Balance shoes on, and there's kind of a joke about that. But depending on the car event you go to, like this Automobiles Alabama thing that I do with Mob Inc., it's an upper class, and I mean, these people are very well dressed, and some of them just show up in their beach shorts and a t-shirt, and there is no stereotypical car guy, because there's no stereotypical car. I mean, I guess you can say all Porsche guys dress alike, and all Corvette guys dress alike, and all Jeep guys dress alike, but it's car people are just as diverse as the cars, and you can't have a stereotypical image of a car person. It's again, I guess, as my boss loves to say during one of our online meetings, a good call out there, Derek. Good call out.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I do like that, John, you've got your Automobiles Alabama shirt on. And tonight I have elected to wear my Old Car Festival shirt. So
it's Automobiles Alabama and No Driving Gloves.
The No Driving Gloves is behind your microphone. So you can't sit. There you go. You got to sit like that.
Yeah, I'm working on that. We're an audio podcast, but yeah, all brought to you by Magic City Podcasting. Are produced and edited by, when editing does occur. So I've talked about it on the show before, and I'm just going to, and it kind of relates to where you started, is, we have these people, and you and I might be guilty of it too. These influencers, they have their podcasts, they have their Instagrams, they have their YouTubes, and they're doing the exact same thing. They're asked questions, and they just answer the questions, even if they don't have a clue about what's going on or what the topic is. And that, you're better to skip the question. Or I think it shows some intelligence to say, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know is the smart, answer, instead of saying something that makes you look like an idiot, like, what is a classic car? And then you fumble for 3 to 5 minutes about what a classic car is, and you still get it wrong. I mean, there is a actual definition of a classic car, but when you come up with, I think I'd call anything before 94 a classic, or
well, it's just, John, it's ambiguous. We all have our own take on what a classic car is. Maybe an answer like that.
That's at least a little bit more accurate. But when you are a perceived expert and you're hemming and hawing, and it's very obvious you're fishing for an answer and throwing stuff out that just hopefully something sticks, and keeps, that you can go, oh yeah, that's it. Even though I told you 14 things getting to this. And I don't think anything is, I mean, if you want to be classic, you got to go with the CCA definition, the Classic Car Club of America. Or is it an antique? Or is it, and cars have always fallen into their own niche where they don't fall into the same antiques as furniture or silverware or jewelry or pottery or any of that stuff. Cars are kind of in the realm of all of that stuff. Cars are very, very new. We've had furnitures for 5,000, 7,000 years. I'm sure the cavemen, quote, had furniture. They sat on a stone. But cars have only been around for 120, 130 years, give or take, 1886 to now. So what we'll say 150 years. But that's just, I guess, one of the answers that I've heard recently that, and I think Derek heard the same answer given it, it just gets to be a little annoying about that.
Well, and on that, in that vein, seeing we're on that automotive podcast, social media influencer, all of that, it really bugs me when I listen to other automotive podcasts. Just right, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'll listen to personal development, leadership podcasts because of my, profession and being a, leader in the museum world. But I also like to listen to other automotive podcasts because that's what John and I do. So I like to hear what some of the other folks out there are talking about, what they're doing, how they approach their podcast. And when I listen to one of those podcasts and the first 40 to 45 minutes of it have nothing to do with automobiles, I really start to wonder what we're doing wrong, John.
Well, I have a podcast consultant I use, and that's one of the big things he says. Get to the point. And I know Derek and I have been guilty of this in the past where we'll talk about what we did, blah, blah, blah. If you've noticed in the last few episodes, we're trying to jump right into that topic. If you're watching the live stream, you better be here at 9:00 because we're going to be done with that topic. And we're going to slide on to something else. We're doing a couple of little segments and that to the show. But we're tired of dragging you hoping you'll listen 30 minutes to get to the point that we want to make. And I'm hoping that works better. Our numbers are up for the show. We're gaining some listeners. I'm seeing that. And that's what my podcast consultant says. Get to the meat. You are advertising a product and you better give me the product because I'm only going to listen for a few minutes. His big complaint he uses quite often is Conan O'Brien. He just has his podcast player set to start like 6 minutes into the show because the first 6 minutes are Conan bitching about his staff and ads. And there's certain other podcasts you can get away with skipping the first 3 minutes because it's going to be ads or whatever. If you're an advertiser, you absolutely don't want to be in that opening. But it's I don't know. The other thing is edit. Even if you're going to leave in all your ums and ahs, and which I'm doing a little bit more to trying to keep the conversation a little bit more flowing. And that's the way I speak. And that's the way Derek speaks. And I don't want to put a false persona, but I do levelize it so that Derek and you're not chasing your volume knob. And, I'm critiquing podcasts here or, there's a YouTuber out, she gets a lot of viewers because she's blonde, young, cute. She obviously has fun with her channel. And I mean, she gets to do what a lot of us really dream of doing. But her camera work, I can't watch her videos because her camera's always moving and bobbing and, take a little bit of time and consider the viewer in the end. Obviously, she just bought a, over $250,000 car recently, kind of on a whim. So obviously it's working for her, but take a few minutes and listen to that. I'll be honest, if the audio quality is bad, I skip it. I've edited for a big podcast production company that does car podcasts and sent them, I listened to this show. Here's what it should sound like. This is what it should sound like. And they've actually called and hired me to do improve some of their really bad audio. But these shows show up in my podcast player, and while they provide superb information, and they're in professional studios, or they have the money to build for professional studios. One podcast, for instance, one of the co-hosts has a professional studio, but he does 90% of the podcasts on his cell phone, walking around his ranch. It sounds like crap, but with what I call the last mile editing, it would sound a lot better. But I dread to even turn on one of those episodes, because am I going to get a good audio or bad audio? And then if it's a topic I like, then I have to come home and I'll edit it myself so that I can actually listen to it. We've had Tony Watley on the show before, and I've actually sent him an episode he put out, and I said, man, that was horrible. Here, publish this. And I consider Tony a friend. So I didn't charge him for it. I said, you need to, if you do interviews, it's respecting your guest to put out a good quality. And please, people, no more Zoom podcasts. So,
dang it, John, just ruined it. I was going to bring out a whole Zoom podcast. Now you're telling me not to do it.
No, there was a podcast I listened to this week, and you could tell the whole thing was done through Zoom. And again, this is another podcaster that he should have, we use StreamYard to record. Right now, it costs, the plan I'm on is $10 a month, but their most expensive plan is $50 a month, really, for doing podcasting. I mean, if do that or do Riverside or whatever. How about we hop over to a little bit of news, though, to break up this, because you want to listen to us, bitch.
We need to get our blood pressure down so we can wrap the show up and with some more pet peeves and not be red in the face by the time we get done with this.
Well, the headline here I've got sounds like Ford back in 2018, 2019. Nissan to eventually kill sedans, but the Sentra will remain. So Nissan's killing cars.
I'm getting so confused by this, John, because now you're telling me that Nissan is thinking about cutting cars when Ford and GM have started hinting that they're going to bring cars back. What's going on? Yeah. Are they in it all together? I mean, seriously, are they in it all together? Like, okay, guys, we're going to bring cars back, so it's your turn to take cars away. We'll just keep rotating through who builds what and sells what.
Well, I'll go with, we don't have great numbers in Japan, probably because we don't speak Japanese. And Ford and GM are listening to our podcast and us bitching about the lack of cars and the desire for them, or the Japanese miss out on it. But then again, and I didn't save the article that, and I can't think of the guy's first name, but the CEO was ousted from Toyota last year because he wasn't investing enough money in electric cars, made a statement this week, kind of laughing at everybody, going, looks like I might have been right, since everybody's kind of stepping back a little bit. I mean, Porsche just announced today or yesterday officially that after 2025, the Boxster and Cayman are electric, which there is a business case for that too. And I'm be honest, I'm fully supportive of making the Boxster and Cayman fully electric, and Porsche with their new 992.2 and their interesting hybrid system, which
you see the 911 hybrid run up the hill? Did you? It ran up the hill.
Did you see the Amira run up the hill?
You mean the not the Amira, the one that wrecked?
Oh, yeah, the
Vija.
The Avisia.
The Avisia, yeah, wrecked right on the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. As a friend
Well,
of mine said, "Oh, look, it's representative of the company of Lotus."
well, the analysis. I mean, this guy in the same car, or that I believe that is a Lotus owned car or something, because a
Mhm.
different driver set the track record for a hypercar at the Nürburgring and things.
Oh,
But
yeah, that car's
bef-
done a lot. It clearly was an issue with the system.
yeah, and then that's what they're saying. But I don't know if it's privately owned or not. And my comment immediately when I saw it was, "Are they going to do what Koenigsegg just did? If that is a privately owned car, will they go? Will Lotus step up and give this guy a new car because their software made a mistake? Because what happened to Koenigsegg, if you didn't see, one of their Jescos burned to the ground,
Oh, no, I
literally
didn't.
um, exploded, caught fire. Driver got out, he's fine, but it burned to the ground, and the driver wasn't upset. I kind of would be if my $4 million Jesco burned to the ground. And he allowed Koenigsegg to take the car back, research it, and they figured out that a connector in one of the hydraulic systems failed. And once this car burned, Koenigsegg went to all of their owners and basically said, put a do not use or do not operate warning in place for all the Jescos until they figured out the problem. And now they figured out this connector is bad and doesn't live up to Koenigsegg standards, which are probably the most exacting in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they're going to now replace it on every Jesco that was built. And Koenigsegg is going to build another Jesco and give it to this guy, no charge. Supposedly, I don't know if there's any insurance money actually going to change hands or not. But Koenigsegg is giving this guy another Jesco because his burned to the ground because of Koenigsegg's fault. And Mike, again with the Amira, not the Amira, whatever we called it, $2.3 million, the Avisia. If it's actually a software problem or a computer problem with this car, should Lotus step up and buy him a new car? Because the Avisia was a very limited production, multi-million-dollar hypercar also. Here's your ultimate rich guy thing. We've mentioned the Mustang GTD on the show before, have we not?
I think so. I think when it was first announced.
And this is the Mustang that's $350,000, designed to compete with the Porsche GT3. Has an inboard rear suspension and all this stuff, and is basically the next. We had the Ford GT in 05 and 06, and then we had the Ford GT in 18 through 21. This is the next supercar from Ford when it really comes down to it. It's just a supercar in a Mustang skin this time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sold out, application process, blah blah blah. Ford announced that, kind of like Viper did, and I'm surprised I didn't see it was Viper mentioned. Porsche was mentioned, but Viper wasn't. In the last 1 or 2 model years of the Viper, they had a color palette of like 60,000 colors, and once a Viper was ordered in that color would never be put on another Viper. Well, and Porsche has its paint to sample program where they have all these fancy colors, and for $11,000 to $15,000, you can get a custom color. I'm actually putting together a show about paint colors and that. We did one a year or 2 ago, but a little bit more information now. And Porsche's got that. Well, what Ford's done with the GTD is I believe they have a palette of 16,000. They have 7 standard colors or 6 standard colors. And then they have a palette of I can't remember what the colors call or what their package is called. Let me see if I can look it up here really quick. The exclusive extended color palette. And this is like 16, I guess it's 16,000 other colors. And there's going to be an upcharge for it. And you can figure it's going to be 5 figures. And then they have the exclusive extended color palette lockout option where they're going to charge you extra to lock that color. And yours will be the only Mustang GTD painted that color, which is going to be interesting when they open the order books. So does that mean they're going to open the order books to a few people at a time? Are they going to open them to everybody? And it's first come, first serve on these colors? Because now, people buying this car aren't exactly going to Capital One Auto Finance and financing this thing. So they've got 350 or 400, no big deal. Every one of these is going to be in this extended color palette, no doubt about it. And unless there's some stupid dealer that just is trying to order one for stock, everyone's going to be a different color, and then everyone's going to be a 101. This is something Corvette should do, because they sell 20,000 Corvettes, 20,000 Corvettes a year.
That was going to be my comment. That was going to be my exact comment. Can you imagine how much money General Motors would make if they did this on Corvette? Because, and this isn't a knock at the Corvette guys. I love the Corvette guys and gals that are out there. And, I know a lot of Corvette folks from my time at the museum. But man, they all strive to figure out a way to package their cars so they are as rare as they possibly can make them. And sometimes there are the ones that are willing to, put a package together that GM says, we're not doing that unless you pay extra. And they pay extra just to make sure they can get what they want and have it be a one of a kind. So yeah, as soon as, and in about 14 days, we're going to see the reveal of the C8 ZR1. And, maybe GM's got an idea up their sleeves on the ZR1 or the rumored Zora that is coming up. Maybe this is something they're going to do on one of those. Unfortunately, I don't have any inside intel anymore. So
it's nice that you can, speculate openly like that. But it's something that I could see becoming norm in this category.
All right, John,
Robert, Robert, you've got a long answer to that question. Do you think electric cars will ever be considered collectible or classic in the future?
No, the short answer for me, that's quick and easy.
Well, the short answer is yes. But there's a whole gambit around it, which goes to one of my next news articles.
Well, I don't think there's a long answer to it. I think it's clearly yes. And all we have to do is look at the fact that electric vehicles from every era that they were produced are collectible to this day. Detroit Electric, Baker Electric, Rao and Lang. The earliest electric vehicles are collectible. Go into the mid-century. The Hennies, the Renault Dauphine Hennies conversions, they're very collectible. The city cars, commuter cars, they're very collectible. There are collectors out there that seek out the electric vehicles that have been produced over time. I mean, there's people already, collectors that are holding on to the original Fiskers, the Karmas, and having them in their collections. So
there's people collecting the new Fisker.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, I think it's a very, again, to me, John, you have your own take on it, but to me, I think it's very simple that, yeah, these are going to be collectible cars moving forward into the future.
Well, the concern with them, I guess, becoming collectible is everything is so proprietary, and you can use the Fisker Ocean as an example. There's all of these Fisker Oceans now available for sale, and Fisker, I believe, asked permission to sell them at $14,000 a piece, which hell of a deal buying a $70,000 car for $14,000. But there is no development team. There is no software team anymore. These are going to be, are buyers going to have access to the software? Is everything going to have to be reverse engineered? But I think you're going to see them all sell. And somebody's going to go in there and you're going to, it's something that's going to come that while say you're older Tesla or your Fisker Ocean or something, I think at some point there will be these aftermarket computers that can go in and then be universally adapted to a lot of these systems. Because when it comes down to it, I imagine when you really get into it, all of these parts are bought from the same people. Because if you remember a couple of years ago, we had this thing called a chip shortage. And there was only like 2 plants in the world that made these chips, and one of them had recently burned. That's why we ran out of chips, because the other one couldn't keep up production or something like that. So there's all these similarities. So I think the cars will be able to be maintained. At Barrett Jackson this year, Sammy Hagar was going to sell his his LaFerrari, and it turned out right before the auction, it was having a battery issue, and he elected to pull the LaFerrari from the auction to get the battery addressed, which probably cost him a few dollars, or, depending on his relationship with Ferrari. But Ferrari just announced this week a new warranty. And now if you buy a electric Ferrari or a hybrid Ferrari with batteries, they will offer up to a 16-year warranty on that battery. So you would be entitled to a replacement at year 8 and year 16. Now, if the battery malfunctions at year 2, they will replace the battery, and then you're entitled to a battery at like year 10, and I think at year 18 or something. The catch is that warranty will run you $7,500 a year. So I don't know if they're going to bill you for all 16 years at point of purchase, or if they're going to bill you $7,500 a year until you stop paying, your American Express, whatever you call it, black card, platinum card, whatever that gets, rejected that month.
John, we messed that up. We messed that segment up. We answered his question too confidently and with too strong of an answer. We should have drugged that out, hemmed and hawed about it, gave a loosey-goosey answer,
I think.
Sorry, guys. I'm referring to one of our pet peeves that we talked about earlier.
Yes. So we could get into it a little bit deeper than that, but everything has a collector. I mean, I've seen some really well. Everybody knows I used to work for George Barber at the Barber Vintage Motorsports Museum. And he was known for having, or still is known for having, the largest collection of motorcycles in the world, largest collection of Lotus race cars in the world. He also collects art. He also collects, well, I can't go into everything he collects because some of it's private, but I kind of joke, George Barber doesn't collect Lotus. He doesn't collect motorcycles. He doesn't collect knives. He doesn't collect art. He collects collections. So there's a collector for everything. It's just, so
come on,
how
John,
big it, but I think it will be pretty big.
John,
no.
in the vein of Mr. Barber, come on down to Lane Motor Museum and you will learn that there are collectors for anything.
Well, it's collector. I would think Jeff's probably falls into that too, of a collector of collections, because he's got his.
I wouldn't say that, because we don't really buy collections. Jeff is a collector of the obscure. That is what it is. He is. I would say it is simply a collector of the obscure.
And it's like when I went to the Bruce Wiener Museum, he was a collector of microcars.
He pronounces his name Weiner.
Yes,
FYI, Bruce Weiner.
We're trying to do a comedy podcast here. Let me do 2 more news things, and we'll jump back.
Cars and comedy. We should trademark that. We should start having cars and comedy. It should be like a night version of Cars and Coffee, but it's a stand-up comedian. You just hang out.
Well, I've been looking for a tagline for No Driving Gloves. It could be No Driving Gloves, Cars and Comedy.
I love it. Let's do it.
So I had a show on it a couple of weeks ago, or I had at least a very strong held opinion on it, and Derek disagreed with me. I think the manual transmission should be disposed of and gotten rid of. guess that's a pet peeve of mine is people still think we should be building and buying manual transmission cars.
John,
Toyota,
I hate to break it to you, but you're no longer part of this podcast.
Toyota to upgrade the 2025 GR Corolla line with an automatic gearbox option.
As long as it stays optional.
Yes, but it's being classified as an upgrade, and it's because so many car enthusiasts don't know how to drive stick and don't care to learn to drive stick. And it's also will have more torque, better gas mileage, and be faster.
Yeah.
With its automatic.
Yeah, but it won't be as much fun.
I think it will be.
Nah.
And this just want to make an announcement. We're not being paid for this. This is something I saw. And we've kind of mentioned we don't necessarily like our collector car insurance companies to have magazines and fairs and car shows and everything but technically insure our cars. And I have no idea about the quality, whatever. But on July 15th, a new collector car insurer, Open Road, will launch. So there is now another player in that game along with, I want to say JJ Best, but they finance. Why am I drawing a blank? JC Taylor,
Grundy.
Doesn't Corvette? I would say didn't Corvette have an collectible insurance? Haggerty, but so there's another one in this group. I have no idea what their rates are going to do, but they claim it's going to be a little bit cheaper because the average car insurance is 22% more than we were paying just a year ago. And I think mine's actually went up about 30% over the last year for my car insurance. So it might be something to look at. I'll try to have links in the show notes for the audio podcast. So check that out on your favorite podcast player or go to nodrivinggloves.com and all the show notes are there also.
You know, John, I looked them up real quick. And I'd be interested if, any of our listeners right now on the YouTube, jump in the comments, or if you're on listening to this when it comes out on the audio, go ahead and send us a message. But I'm looking it up. It seems like Open Road is very well known primarily as a motorcycle insurance company. So maybe there's some of our listeners that use it for motorcycles. We'd love to hear what your experience with them is.
I'd love to get some feedback on that. Oh, so let's jump back into our main topic and wrap things up here. I'm going to say one of my biggest pet peeves, and I know Derek's going to be all over this one. I hate it when your position clashes with your position. I do not think museum curators have any business appraising vehicles. I don't think appraisers have any business being museum curators. I don't think, I don't think they have any business. I don't think when you're in a museum, you don't have any business really doing any outside buying advice. I don't think you should be doing reviews per se. You can talk about items in your collection and give opinions, but I don't think you should. I think you need to take a look at the ethics that are involved in the overlap. And some of this just seems too muddy, and how it can affect things down the road.
100% agree, John. And you hit the nail on the head there by talking about the ethics involved. You have to remember that when you work for a 501c3 nonprofit, you work for what is called a public trust. You are working for an organization that has elected to become a public trust. and that the items that are held within that are not owned by an individual. They're not really owned by the institution, but rather they are part of the greater public world. They are there, they're tax. It's a tax exempt institution that gets oftentimes federal grants and money to help support it. So you are part of something that the greater public is supporting, and you're holding those items in the trust of the public to educate them. So the big problem with it, and I think we've probably touched on it on the show in the past, but the reason curators, conservators that work in museums, collection based staff members that work within museums, technically, if you really get into the ethical side of things, we actually, under IRS law, cannot appraise vehicles. We cannot do that. And it actually stems back to some issues in the art museum world in the 1970s and 1980s, when those rules were not in place under the nonprofit guidelines in IRS tax law. And art museums and art auction houses were working together to elevate the value, inflate the value of artwork to make it more important and make more money when institutions would sell off some of their collections to try to buy other artworks. So there was a lot of unethical stuff going on in the 70s and 80s. The IRS cracked down on it. So we now have a whole bunch of ethical standards that we are supposed to live by. And a pet peeve of mine is I know people in this world, I don't necessarily call them colleagues because they don't abide by those ethical standards. And I do, even to a point where I've told people, "Look, I'm not even going to tell you what I think as a friend it's worth, because it's just not what I can be doing in the profession I've chosen to be in." So, huge pet peeve of mine when I see people that I know from the field getting involved in appraisals or anything of that nature, because it gets to be a very dangerous situation.
And I can speak from personal experience in that I was an appraiser, a certified appraiser for almost 10 years, which did overlap into my barber museum career. Back when I restored, it wasn't a big deal, but I never felt right doing it. The company I was affiliated with said, "Oh no, it's fine, it's fine." The museum even said, we don't have an issue with it." But it just got to me after a few years that I had no business doing that, because I never knew if one of my appraisals would potentially come back to be an appraisal used for a donation to the museum. And that really muddies the water if all of a sudden an employee of that institution has appraised the vehicle being donated to that institution. That's one reason we have so many regulations about museum donations, especially in the automotive world. And we've talked about it, and Derek probably can clarify it more because it's been a few years since I've been in that world. But being able to hold an asset for a certain period of time, or if it's sold, being able to realize a certain percentage of that appraised value at the time of sale, or otherwise the donor's liable for the taxes and potentially penalties if that appraisal was too high. Or on the flip side, if that appraisal was too low, the donor didn't get the full advantage of his donation. But it's always the high thing. He gets a bigger tax deduction, or the institution says, "Oh, we're going to appraise that for blah, 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 so that you get this huge write-off and we acquire that item." It's completely wrong. And I would even cringe when I've heard people asking the institution, "Well, who do I go to for an appraisal?" The answer should be Google, not, "Oh, we got these 3 guys." No, you go to Google and you find your appraiser. or you go to your collector car buddy or your car club and find an appraiser. This is one time I might even say, go to Facebook and ask the car group for your, car. Who's the guy that should appraise this?
As someone who deals with it regularly, still to this day, John, number one, your question on length, duration of time you have to keep a donation. Currently under IRS law, it stands at 36 months, 3 years. And then the IRS, does not come back and make anyone update or change anything on the value that the vehicle was sold for, or artifact, I should say, because that falls under everything, artworks, furniture, any of it, any donation. And then on what was the last thing you mentioned? Because I just blanked.
Well, I was talking about the referral of an appraiser.
Oh, yes, referral. Thank you. Oof, man. It's rough getting old.
Yeah, you 40 something.
Yes, my answer to that when folks do ask is pretty much what you said. I'll usually say, it's great to go to Google and look around. And I say, if you don't find someone or know someone locally that you can talk to about it, one of the nationwide appraisal groups, there are a few of them out there that do automotive appraisals. I always say reach out to the ones that you find that are nationwide, because they have agents all over the country that will likely be within a few hours. They will have one within a few hours of where you are, and they'll be able to work with you. It's never recommending one certain appraisal or appraisal group or appraiser. It's always these are the things you can do to find one that you can talk to see if you want to use
them. Yeah, I was wondering if Robert would chime in here, because he does appraisals as part of his business. Says, I inspect a lot of classic cars for Hagerty, and most cars I look at have a ridiculous guaranteed value. Hagerty doesn't request the owner get an appraisal on value. They ask the owner what they think it's worth. I don't know. Should I tell Robert a story from 25 years ago that I had with?
I don't know. I mean, but my $1 million Model T is freaking amazing.
I was talking to McKeel Hagerty, and we were discussing appraisals and values, and he said, we don't care. If you tell us what your car's worth and it's not ridiculous. Now, Robert's using the word ridiculous. We'll set a rate. And if it's ridiculous, we might double look at it. But he says our rates are set to protect us. So you might have, $100,000 value on your 88 Mustang GT hardtop, but you're also paying a little bit more to have that $100,000 policy, where if you had it, insured for what it's worth at 30, you're probably paying 50% less, So, and I would imagine, a lot of cars are that way. But I also, as somebody who used to do appraisals, and I would imagine any appraiser out there would recommend, get your car appraised before the accident and get it, don't tell Hagerty. I mean, if you got your 88 Mustang GT insured for $150,000 through Hagerty or JC Taylor or whoever, fine. But have the car appraised, because when the little old lady from Geico hits you, there's going to be a lot of contention. And the more proof you have, the better.
John, you missed it again. You had a wide open opportunity there. The little old lady from Pasadena with Geico insurance.
I was trying to avoid, I know I'm not having any fun. I've got one more.
Your dad took your T-Bird away, didn't he?
there's something really funny here. And I know my dad listens to the show, but my dad did take my brother's T-Bird away.
See, it's true. The songs are true.
Never really thought about that, but I'll have to.
As they say, most songs are written about real life.
So,
what were you going to say, John? Sorry.
I was going to say, I've got one more that you probably don't even know is happening because it was just announced within the last day or two. That's a big pet peeve. But do you have one more before I do mine, or?
It's a cliche one, I'm going to call it. But it's sprung up again just this week in a meeting, and I don't want to get too far into it. But and I don't even know how to approach this because I'm John and I both, we're both obviously kind of the middle generation right now, 40s, 50s. Yeah, we've got a lot of younger guys and gals coming up behind us. We've got a lot of older folks ahead of us that have been around. But the the again, the cliche of the older generation not wanting to listen to the younger generation and just the kind of disparity that exists there. It's a big pet peeve of mine when the older, let's call it the old guard, doesn't want to let their guard down and let the younger generations get involved in things and have input in things because yeah, we've been around a lot longer, we've seen this all, and we know what's better. And I'm not saying that the older generation doesn't know more than us, right? There's the old Chinese proverb, if you want to know the road ahead, ask the man that's coming back. In other words, ask someone who's already been there. But the pet peeve of not, and I mean, it's like they've forgotten when they were younger and they were trying to be involved and they were trying to do things. And I'm sure they got resistance. At some point, I feel like the resistance has got to break. I always say, I hope when I get older, I don't become that person. I hope I remember these conversations that I have and I am more open and not an old guard that doesn't want new ideas. But it's just a pet peeve. It's like I say with any of my teams when I'm, in a museum and I'm, leading a collections team, whatever. I hate nothing more than for someone to come into a meeting and say, "Oh, well, we've tried that before, so we're not going to do it." Okay. That idea may have come up before and, it may have been tried in one way, but why did that way fail? And is there a different way we could try it that might work? It's a big pet peeve of mine for, the I'll call it the old guard, whatever you want to call it, the older generation to come in and have new people coming up behind them and just not accept, you know, discussion about new ideas or ideas that could be approached differently and things like that. So I don't want to get too deep into it.
Well, before I get to mine, Robert just asked, where can I get a No Driving Gloves shirt? He's a collector of t-shirts. Shoot me an email at nodrivinggloves.com. Excuse me. Shoot me an email at nodrivinggloves@gmail.com or producer at nodrivinggloves.com. Go to the website. You can get through us through there. And let me know. I don't have an online store yet, but we can make t-shirts available to you. I do them in small runs. I also have coffee cups, and maybe the camera can pick it up. I've been using this insulated mug now for about 3-4 weeks. It's not the prettiest thing. I'm working on a couple different designs, but we'll have those available too.
Before you go into your last thing, John, I got to ask Robert a question. He's a collector of t-shirts. He's going to get a No Driving Gloves t-shirt. what is the agreed value insurance that you're putting on the No Drive Gloves t-shirt?
I think we're going to agree it's worth $29.95.
All right.
That's our ridiculously.
John,
that's our ridiculous guaranteed value.
yes, and if you can't afford that, we'll accept 3 easy payments of $11.99 over 3 months. Yeah, do the math.
$60. No,
it's actually over $60 if you do the payment plan.
Nope,
So what's a pet peeve, John? What do I not know that's going on that is a pet peeve?
Google made an announcement today.
Well, I mean,
and
I use Google, but yeah.
Well, say, what map program do you use on your phone to find your way around?
Usually Google Maps.
And what's the biggest problem with cell phones in a car?
People
drivers
using them while they're driving,
looking at them. I figured you dropped in there, Phil. We might need to actually do a late show for you.
I've used Waze as well. I have both Waze and Google on my phone.
I have a problem with Waze. This isn't my pet peeve, but I can't get Waze to turn off. I use Apple Maps. I'm in the Apple ecosystem. So when I get out of the car and I've arrived at my destination, it turns off. Waze never turns off, and it just eats your battery like crazy.
Yep.
If I could figure out how to turn it off. Well, Google Maps 1, which is a yay, is going to start putting your vehicle speed in the display, which I know Waze does also. Apple Maps does not. Mm-hmm. Apple Maps also doesn't let you confirm the address that you're going to. I put in an address that I'm going to. And for example, I was coming home to said address, and it popped up. Oh, yeah, I clicked it, and I'm driving home, leaving West Point, Mississippi, and I get about a half hour down the road, and I go, I've never went this way before. Turns out where I live is the same street address as a place in Meridian, Mississippi. So it was going to drive, and ironically, where I was about 2 hours and 20 minutes from my house, and this place in Meridian was like 2 hours and 15 minutes. So even the time and mileage matched. And for some reason, I finally went back. It was taking me to the place in Mississippi and not home. Boy,
that would have been an odd conversation when you pulled into that driveway.
I would have probably figured it out at some point, but I'm about an hour and a half in, and this sure doesn't look like Alabama. But no, Google Maps is going to start adding advertising. So that as you're using your Google Maps, you're going to get pop-up ads randomly for points of interest that you go by. So when you drive by a Walmart, you might get an ad for Tide laundry detergent. And when you drive by Petco, you might get an ad for Caesar's cat food. You drive by Home Depot, you might get an ad for a John Deere lawnmower.
Ooh, this actually, if they approach it right, it could be fun. Like as you're like Walmart or Target, and an ad comes up, like, did someone just almost, or let me start over. Sorry. Did someone just cut you off? Did you poop your pants a little? Walmart is 5 miles away. Stop in for a new pair of underwear.
And we have Charmin too.
Yeah.
No, I just find Waze does that when you're at a red light, but you're still not even supposed to look at the phone.
Well, yeah, but I never look at my phone. I have mine plugged in. It goes over my,
your Android Auto.
Yeah. So it's always up on my screen on my dash. I don't have to pull my phone out.
Yeah, I just disagree with that.
Also, I want to know how
Derek uses Android stuff.
Yeah, I want to know how many red light districts Phil's stopping in.
Yeah. I don't get that with Apple Maps yet, but I might almost agree to pay not to have the distraction. But I find that
How do
one's
you
questionable. And
wait,
Waze or
John?
Phil says Waze is doing it.
But wait, we need to get in on I think we need to get in on the front door of this or the back door. I don't know, whatever door it is. Because on long road trips, like multi-hour road trips where people are using, we should have no driving glove ads.
Well, we can find out what that costs.
Advertising the podcast. Are you bored on your drive? Want to be more bored? Listen to No Driving Gloves.
Or cars and comedy come together.
Yes.
See, it's a throwback. Oh, there
We're
was
gonna have
one
to change
other.
our intro.
We're probably going to be doing that anyway, which the viewers don't get because we like to now get right to the topic. The audio listeners do get a little bit of an intro so they can learn what the show is about. Anything else we got going on, Derek? We had any quick personal things? Of course, did I do anything car stuff this week? I think I actually did something car stuff this week. Did you?
You know, unfortunately, with the 4th of July holiday, been traveling and we've got a family vacation next week. So I'm going to be traveling again for family vacation. And so not a lot of car stuff. A lot of it's, I shouldn't say that. I haven't been doing a lot in the shops out, in my shop and working on the cars. Obviously the Duryea is still trying to organize everything and see what's there and all that. But really when it gets into downtimes like this, I'll try to sneak in a few minutes here and there to do the research. So I got back on a couple of my other cars, reaching out to some of the old contacts I had made on Lloyd, my 1958 Lloyd Sport Custom, and my Hupmobile Speedster, getting back in touch with some of the people that I know that have owned that car in the past, or the family of the big collector that owned it way back in the day. And so I'm trying to pull in some more of the research while I've got some non-shop time going on. And I think I mentioned last week's episode, maybe I didn't. But big news on the Duryea is I did discover that it is, should I say, was a Bill Hara car. So it was part of the Hara collection before he passed, and that all got broken up and sold off in auctions, and then part of it turned into the National Automobile Museum out in Reno. So it's actually the buggy yacht is one of the cars that are in the book that was published by Harris back in 1966. It was considered one, he considered it one of the 100 greatest cars in his collection. So kind of stoked to see that happen.
Yep, we actually did talk about that 2 episodes ago. So, like you said,
I
you're over
don't
40
remember
now,
what
and
I talk about anymore.
you're over 40 and you forget things. And thank everybody who joined us last week. And it was a replay. I did a little bit of American car talk at the very beginning, and then for those of you that missed it, I replayed the very first episode of No Driving Gloves with Derek, John, and Will. And ironically, I didn't realize we covered that topic on the first episode because I know we covered it again. And that was our take at the time on barn finds. So, but if you want to find out where we started, because I know a lot of the listeners we have now were not there in the beginning, and we've had some rough patches, but we're almost a year straight hitting you with an episode every week. We plan on keeping it up, and we thank you for all of your support. Derek's going to give you some call to action, and then I'm going to tell you what to do.
What? Call to action? No. Guys, as always, if you enjoy the show, if you're enjoying being part of the No Driving Gloves community, if you haven't already, go over and find us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, all those great places where No Driving Gloves lives. Give us a like. And if you're so inclined, you'll see the QR code with the buy us a coffee. If you'd like to give us a little support, go over there, buy us a coffee, show us some love. Obviously, John's getting ready to launch some of our merchandise as well. So as soon as we get that up where you'll be going to be able to see it, we will share that. And the biggest thing you can do to help us out here at the show, as well as grow the No Driving Gloves community, guys, help us grow. Share the show.
And with that, everybody knows I like to tell you to get off your ass and burn some gas, because we is